So in today's edition of Hobby Market Watch for Collectors, we've got 6 cards we're going to take a look at. Of course, I'm going to start with the one everybody in the hobby is talking about, and that is the 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth in the SGC 3 slab, sold for a staggering amount of money, $7.2 million. That's the third highest sell of all time. It is not what many were predicting that it might sell for. I kept seeing predictions or estimations closer to $9 million. So it fell about 1.8 million shy of that. I thought there was a chance that it would sell closer to that $9 million myself, but still $7.2 million is nothing to shout at. The all-time record holder, of course, is the 1952 Mickey Mantle card. This is in the SGC 9.5 slab. It sold for $12.6 million back in 2022, just over a year ago. Made me think when this card didn't quite come up to expectations, the Babe Ruth. Would the Mickey Mantle sell today for the same amount of money? Or is the market soft enough that if that card was to have come up to market this month, that it would come maybe 10 million bucks, somewhere between 10 and 12 million dollars? I personally think it probably does not fetch the full 12.6 if it was at the on the market today. Of course, it needs to sell well above that when you talk about auction fees, but I don't know that it fetches it based upon the overall market conditions and these ultra expensive cards. We've started seeing a lot more weakness in that specific marketplace. And so I don't know that it gets there. I'm curious to know what you guys think. Interesting though, when we talk about the winners of the week, this came to my mind. Everybody's going to be talking about Robert Edwards Auctions. That's who sold the Babe Ruth as the big winner of the week, and rightfully so. They're getting a lot of national press right now. There's a lot of people outside of the hobby talking about this card, which is a great thing for the hobby. It's a great thing for REA as well. But those of us in the hobby, I actually think SGC is the big winner. Why do I think that? Well, part of it is look at the 2 cards on the screen. Both of these are in SGC slabs. And I also, if you guys want to head after this over to chasingmajors.com, that's our website, I just put up an article of the 5 most expensive baseball cards of all time. The card in the number 2 position is also in an SGC slab. Now, all those people, specifically all those flipper, dealer, investor types, they're talking about if it's cards have to go in PSA slabs, they catch premium prices. And I look at the data, I understand most of the low dollar cards do generally catch a bit of a premium price. The interesting thing right now is the king of the mountain, kind of the company at the very top right now, who has the 3 most expensive cards in their labels is SGC. And that's something I'm not hearing the SGC PR team talk much about. And if I was running that PR team, I would absolutely be shouting this from the rooftops. Maybe that's going to come. Maybe it is out there and I've just kind of missed it. I know I haven't seen it on Twitter and I haven't seen it on some of the YouTube videos that I've been watching. But right now, SGC is looking great when you look at the fact that 12.6, 7.2, and the card in the number 2 position is like 7.25. So just a hair above what the Babe Ruth sold for. But all 3 of those are in SGC slabs. And that's something that we should be taking notice of as an overall community. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the Hobby Market Watch section. There's a big boy card of the week, what I'm calling eBay's big boy card of the week. This isn't a card that I have a projection on. It's just a card that I seen that I wanted to actually share with you guys. It's an amazing card and I want to talk about it just for a quick second. There's no projected price, so we don't have a projection on this, but it sold for $28,000. Again, it's the highest grossing sell for eBay over the last 7 days. That was a buy it now, or OBO, excuse me. It was a best offer. I believe the original auction was up for closer to $45,000. So they came down considerably from their listed price, sold for $28,000 on the 27th. Now, reason why I want to talk about this card is we see a lot of Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant dual autos, Michael Jordan, LeBron dual autos, Michael Jordan, Magic Johnson dual autos, and those cards, rightfully so, they're amazing cards and they deserve to be talked about within the hobby. But the fact that this is a Michael Jordan Dr. J card, and I really think Dr. J is vastly underrated when we talk about generational greats, not the GOAT debate, but generational greats. There was a time when Julius was arguably the number 1 or 2 best player on the planet. Of course, Kareem, that was, Kareem's era as well. And so there's going to be a certain camp that would say Kareem, and a certain camp, certainly you could say Julius Erving was in that camp as far as best player on the planet, right before Bird and Magic joined the league. So great card. This was an Upper Deck Radiance card, which is a brand that, or a line of Upper Deck cards that they didn't sell for a lot of years, but still amazing looking card. Those gold autographs absolutely pop on it. Just a card I stopped and said, you know what, this is a card I'm going to throw on this week's Market Watch. Let's talk about what cards that we have projections on. So this 1960 Roberto Clemente in a PSA 8. This is an awesome card, great looking. It's in an old flip, and I really think that hurts the card. It sold for $1,135 at auction, 24 total bids back on Sunday, it looks like, over on eBay. The prior sell prior to that was just a few days earlier on the 27th of November. That was also an eBay sale, $1,500. Our projected price was $1,600. Again, with our projected prices, you'd say plus or minus 10%. So the sell on the 27th certainly falls within that deviation. So why did this card sell for about $400 to $500 less? I think it's the flip. I really do. I think that old flip is going to, detract from the overall appeal of the card. Certainly, you're going to make a determination whether you want to keep your cards in old flips, specifically cards that are going to sell in the thousands of dollars. But this might be something that you guys want to pay attention to a little bit more closely, because cards in older flips may not be commanding the prices. I think that this one certainly hurt this card. Next card I want to talk about, interesting card here, the Billy Ripken F-Face Error card. This is the 1989 Fleer. This is a overproduced card. There's a ton of these in the marketplace. This is a Gem Mint 10 copy. It's in a newer flip as well. Sold for $550 on a buy it now on the 3rd, so on Sunday, over on eBay. Reason why I wanted to talk about this card was for 2 reasons. The sell prior to that was $425 just a few days earlier on November the 30th. By the way, total pop on this card in PSA 10, Gem Mint 10. There's about 2,500 of them, just shy of 2,500 of them. In PSA 9 slabs, there's over 6,000 of them. So in very high grades, this is a very common card above and beyond the number of non-graded versions that are out there or the total pop reports. Our projected price was $427, so that prior sell back on the 30th of November was pretty much spot on. The last sell at $550 was about $100 more than the card should have sold for, which is interesting. I want to talk about the peak price about this one, and that's part of why I wanted to pull this one in today's Hobby Market Watch. Peak price was set in 2023, just a few months ago. The sell was $2,625, or was it? The interesting thing about this is when we look at the overall history of this card, there are 2 sells of this card, both in 2023, both over $2,000, both sold on eBay with the seller as 4 Sharp Corners. They're a major consignor. I actually think very highly of 4 Sharp Corners. They've become a really big player in the consignment space. But I've started noticing more and more that some of their cards are selling for ridiculous numbers, like PWCC and Probstein sort of ridiculous numbers, to the tune of they just don't make sense. A card like this in 2023, PSA 10 with a pop of 2,500 total cards that sold for $150, $125 a few days earlier. So it was $125 less, shouldn't be selling for $550. It's just, and it certainly isn't selling for $2,600. So it's an interesting dilemma. I'm not necessarily trying to create a controversy here. Certainly, you guys need to do your own due diligence and things that you want to look at. The reason why I have on the screen $600 with an asterisk next to it, the third highest sale that I have a record on was $600. So this card sold last week for $50 off the all-time high, in my opinion, because I really don't think that those two sales, those two transactions for $2,600 are legitimate. I'm not saying that the hammer didn't close at $2,600 or over $2,000. I don't know that the buyer actually paid that price. I know that there's no reason to pay that sort of a premium. So take this all-time high with a grain of salt. When you guys are doing your due diligence, you should be looking at information in those ways, or I would suggest that you look at information in those ways, because there's something amiss with those two sales above and beyond. That card it's selling at $550 with all-time highs, possibly at $600. I don't know why anybody needs a Gem Mint 10 of this card when there's so many copies out there. You can get so many raw copies for $40-50 that you could possibly still gem up at this point. All right, next card to take a look at. This was an eye catcher as well. This is the 1934 Gowdy. This is I believe a second year. I think the 33 Gowdy was Dizzy Dean's rookie card, but 1934 Gowdy Dizzy Dean. This is an SGC3. Wonderful centering, wonderful color, wonderful overall registration. Of course, rounded corners, but for a 1933 Gowdy, rounded corners are more than acceptable. Card sold for $535 back on Sunday over on eBay. Prior sale to that was $590 about a year ago, a little bit more than that, also over on eBay. In PSA slabs, there's quite a few of these that have sold for similar type prices. The all-time high in the SGC3 slab was basically $900. That was set back in April of 2021. Our projected price on this was $550. So both the prior sale back in 2022 and the most recent sale are pretty much right in alignment with what we would expect from a Chasing Majors projected price. All right, final card to talk about. And another reason why I want to talk about this, I'll get to here in a moment, but let's go through the details first. 1972 Roger Staubach rookie card. This is in a mid-tier grade PSA 5. If you look at the card itself, it's somewhat cockeyed. Centering is also off top to bottom, right to left. Edge wear, you can see slight edge wear. Certainly fits kind of the profile of a PSA 5. Card sold for $156 over on PWCC just on Sunday on their weekly auction. The sale prior to that was one day earlier. That was for $167.50, which would typically indicate that the guy or gal that purchased the card over on PWCC got a little bit of a break. But the reality is they didn't. When I take a look at our projected price, when we go look at our formula, again, our formula is looking at the overall, it's accounting for the overall marketplace. It's accounting for the football marketplace. It's accounting for this card, recent sales in this grade, recent sales of, SGC slabs, recent sales of grades slightly higher and slightly below. And there's a whole multitude of things that the formula is really looking at when it's coming up with the predicted price of $132. The interesting thing is when I look at some of the cards that sold also in the last couple of weeks, the vast majority of those cards are selling for $120. And I think lesson, if there's a lesson here that I want to try and impart with you before we wrap this up, is we're kind of in the final end of the year push of major card shows and local card shows. And if you're in a market for a card like this, make sure you're doing the due diligence on what fair market value is, and you're not leaving this up to a dealer. Because if I'm a dealer and I go look at eBay and I see the last two prices are $155 and $165, I'm probably going to want somewhere really close to that number. But if you go just and look a couple cards, a couple sales prior to that, you see a number of these selling for $120. And so this is a card I wouldn't be paying $155 for at this point in time. Certainly wouldn't be paying $165 for, but that gets back to the heart of you doing your due diligence. Don't just take the dealer's word. If you guys are comping a card in the moment, If they're comping it, you should be doing your own comps as well, because it'd be very easy for a dealer to say the last two sales were 155 and 167. I want 150 bucks for it. And then you're possibly overpaying by, 20, 30, 40 bucks. So that's kind of the final PSA, the public service announcement that I want to make here. Make sure you're doing your own due diligence on cards. Both of the prior sales were slight overpays in my opinion. The all-time peak on this was 325. So this is a card that's come way down. It's a very common card, relatively speaking. It's a very popular card, of course, being a Cowboys Hall of Fame quarterback, but it's definitely a very common card, and paying 160 and 155 bucks, just a slight overpay. Make sure you guys are doing your due diligence in this current season and current market that we're in. And with that, I think that's what I've got for you guys today. I will catch you guys on the flip side. As always, sign off my normal way. Talk to you in the next one.